It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, answer. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. It's another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Happy to have you along with us on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Lots of different ways to follow along, whether it's in real time or after the fact. If you're tuning in on the podcast, you can always text us whenever it's convenient for you. Podcasts are found on our websites and on our mobile app. So lots of different ways to follow along. And the text line, the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, is always open. 435-339-0321 is the number for you to text in and let us know what's on your mind. If you agree or disagree with some of our takes, always love to hear from you and get your opinion on things. So certainly the big topic to lead off with here, Jason, is big win for Utah State on Saturday night, Valentine's Day. Love was in the air for the Aggies, not so much for the Tigers. And it was actually the opposite of love, the way that game ended for one Penny Hardaway.
Not so much love at the end of the game either. So,
but we'll get into that. But let's talk about the game itself before we talk about what happened at the end. This was an interesting game to follow for Utah State, where Memphis comes into this game with kind of a mediocre record, but they had some real size in the post, and they did have some dynamic guards. And this looked like, even though Memphis has struggled a little bit to pick up some wins, they still pose some challenges for Utah State based on how they're built and how they play. And the first good chunk of that first half, it was back and forth. It was anybody's game. Aggies were struggling, eliminating offensive rebounds and second chance opportunities for Memphis, but they hung in there and then just went on fire the last 3-4 minutes of the first half, and then didn't relinquish that going into the second half and just continued to build on that. But what were some of the things that you saw, Jason, that really seemed to be the difference maker for USU and how they closed out that first half in particular?
I think the one interesting thing was the fact that in a game where you're playing, Memphis team that has 7-footers to spare, they have 3 of them in their rotation. Utah State has 1 player in the rotation taller than 6'9". And only 2 taller than 6'8". These guys have 3 7-footers in their rotation. They could always have a 7-footer out there on the court, and they often had 2. They started 2 of them in their starting 5. So the Aggies were going against a team that had size to spare, size to burn. But the Aggies went small. They went with a 4-guard lineup where essentially you had either MJ Collins or Mason Falslev playing power forward, 6'3", 6'4" guards. And so like in, Carson Templin, he's your tallest guy on the court. He's 6'8". So like that's your 5 lineup is a bunch of 6'3", 6'4" guards, and then Carson Templin. But with the perimeter defense that then gave them, and then the speed that they had on offense, they were able to just run around everywhere, and Memphis couldn't really keep track of them. Sure, they had guys inside, 7-footers in the paint to at least theoretically deter Aggie, shots. They weren't actually particularly good at it. They only had 2 blocks the entire game, and honestly, it tracks with, there's actually, they've been decent at blocking shots, but they also commit a lot of fouls. And so with the speed, getting Memphis into scramble situations, sure, they were smaller, but that ended up being an advantage. It's actually something we've seen used against the Aggies in the past. Talk about the struggles they've had playing against 4-guard lineups with Fresno State and whatnot. So Utah State kind of turned the tables on a team that was bigger than them. And then, you look at Memphis, the advantage when you're bigger than a team, you go with it in there and you dominate the paint. You get shots inside. You get every rebound that exists. But Utah State, even when playing smaller, were able to box out, get rebounds. And, of course, there weren't really many rebounds to be had for them on offense because they were making every single shot. But on defense, they were still managing to track down rebounds. And so when Utah State went small, they were actually able to create that gap that hadn't been there for the entire first 15 minutes of the game. And then once they kind of went back, they did go to the small lineup again in the second half, but it wasn't as effective as that end of first half. But that burst right there, that changed the game where Memphis was completely caught off guard by a team going completely small and just were not ready to stop it.
Yeah, I found it fascinating just to watch Coach Calhoun's kind of coaching strategy in this game. And because we've seen some games before where teams built this way give the Aggies trouble. And we know Utah State just doesn't have the same size as Memphis has in some teams that are similar. And that's been a bit of a challenge for Utah State. And this was as much of a coaching win as it was a player performance win. Just how Utah State made some adjustments with their roster, how they changed some things with how they chose to attack Memphis and to kind of mitigate some of Memphis's strengths as well. Yes, they gave up 18 offensive rebounds, and that's rough. But they won by 24, so I think you can live with giving up 18 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, and you gave up 18 offensive rebounds to a team that shot 36%. So there were more offensive rebounds to be had.
Right, yeah.
And you also only lost the rebounding battle by 4 because the Aggies got 12 offensive rebounds against this team. I'll tell you what, I don't know if I've ever seen a team that big be that bad at rebounding. They got the 18 offensive rebounds, but you were seeing, Mason Falslev had 3 offensive rebounds. You're letting a guard go in there and just get these offensive rebounds? They're standing 4 or 5 inches taller than some of the Aggies. They're just getting out-hustled to an offensive rebound. And sure, that's kind of the weird thing about Memphis is they're a really solid offensive rebounding team, but by the numbers are a terrible defensive rebounding team. And you saw that live when you watched the game. It's holy cow, the Aggies are getting, they shot 52% from the field and had 12 offensive rebounds. Half the shots they missed, they went and got the offensive rebound.
Yeah, this was an interesting game for a lot of different reasons. Memphis put up one more field goal attempt than Utah State.
Yeah.
And the Aggies beat them by 24. So the Aggies were far more efficient with what they were doing offensively. And Memphis, with all their second chance opportunities, didn't make a lot of didn't take advantage of those opportunities they probably should have.
It was kind of their one decent source of offense.
And had they not been able to get all those offensive rebounds and second chance opportunities, my gosh, this would have been a 30-point game.
Yeah, they'd have been in the 60s because they got 21 second chance points. So solid. But just a lot of those were, there were probably a couple possessions where they got, 2 or 3 or I think sometimes even 4 offensive rebounds. So some of the 18 offensive rebounds is kind of inflated because it was just one possession down the court. So, yeah, Memphis just could not really match the Aggies once Utah State's offense got going. And credit to Memphis for those first, again, 10, 15 minutes where Utah State was struggling. They could not find a good shot. They had a few decent open three-point looks, but they missed most of them early on. And then they could not get into the paint to save their lives. Utah State was kind of really intimidated by Memphis's length at first. And then Utah State just kind of gradually got over it. Managed to accelerate things because they started 2 of 11 from the field. Make 2 of your first 11 shots. Then you finish the game shooting 55%, which I don't know what the math comes out to. It's 29 of 48. Do the math on what percentage that is. That's what they shot after they started. And to be honest, at one point, near the end of the first half, they were 6 of 23. So you can do a little bit more math. They then made 11 of their next 13 shots. And I think one of those missed shots was immediately tipped back in. so it didn't even matter there. So once Utah State really kind of got used to things, they just started finding all their shots. The passing and driving kick game was spectacular, where they were generating open three after open three.
Yeah,
we've now had 2 games in a row where Utah State has faced an elite 3-point defense. Fresno State ranking, I think, in the top 30 or 50 in 3-point defense. Heck, might have even been the top 20 or top 25. But one of the top teams in 3-point defense. They shot incredibly well, at least really well from 3 again. So I think hit 10 or 11 3-pointers. Then against Memphis, a team, again, with elite 3-point shooting defense. And they go 10 of 28 against them.
Yeah, it was a really fun game to watch collectively as a team. Then you had great individual performances. Carson Templin had a career night.
He had 3. He had 3 or 4, to be honest. Great individual performances.
Well, yes, plural. Yeah, because Carson had a career night, 20 points, 4 boards, perfect at the free throw line. Perfect 10 for 10. That is very un-Carson Templin-like.
Yeah.
But he also had he had an assist. He also had 1 steal and 2 blocks. Just super active off the bench.
Yeah, doing all that in just 25 minutes. The dude was almost averaging a point a minute out there.
Yeah, super effective. Certainly Elijah Perryman for the game that he had, 10 points, 9 assists. Also had 4 steals off the bench, recognized as the Mountain West Conference Freshman of the Week. And then MJ Collins just got on fire offensively, hitting from the outside. Well, once from the outside, hit 1 3-pointer, but just his activity, attacking the rim, some spectacular plays, and taking some of the pressure off of some other guys who were not quite on as much offensively. But and then Mason had a 20-point performance with 6 boards, 2 assists, and a steal. So a lot of guys just playing with confidence and chipping in and helping the team with this huge win at home.
Yeah, because just about everyone had a decent part in the offense. Drake Allen, the only one who really struggled with his shot, didn't hit a field goal. He got his only points at the free throw line, where he got 3 of them.
Struggled with staying on the court because of fouls.
Yeah, and then some turnovers. He had 4 of the Aggies' 9 turnovers. But you look at the 4 players you mentioned, Carson, Elijah, Mason, and MJ, they combined for, if I did the math right, 74 points. So by themselves, they would have barely lost to Memphis.
Yeah.
But then obviously you get 3 from Drake, 10 combined from Zach and Adlin Elamine, 7 from Colby King, Gary Clark pitching in for 5. You had the big scores. You had the 3 20-point scores, but everyone was having a hand in the scoring. You just had some guys that had a little bit inflated numbers today. Not so much inflated, but just the scoring concentrated with them because they had the opportunities on this occasion. And with MJ, you mentioned how he only hit the 1 3-pointer. You think, MJ has 24, that means he probably hit 3 or 4 3-pointers. No, he hit 1. And he only had 3 free throws, which actually I think they all came, or a couple of them came when he was fouled on a 3-pointer. But he attacked the rim, and this is something that I was a little worried where when you watched him in the preseason, a lot of his scoring just came from hitting a bunch of 3-pointers, a couple of fast break layups. You didn't see him doing a ton in the half court, breaking down defenses, attacking closeouts, getting to the rim, finishing effectively. You'd see a lot of mid-range or 3-pointers and some fast break dunks. In this game, you saw him getting a little bit more creative. It's not like we haven't seen him get creative, but in this game, we saw a little bit more volume of it. You saw some fantastic finishes, savvy finishes, because on one play he had 1 or even 2 7-footers coming right at him, and he uses the rim to protect the ball and keep it from getting blocked, and finishes with the left hand too. So it was a crafty finish going to the rim. Of course, then he had a circus shot where he finished over 2 different 7-footers while getting fouled. That sent him to the line for and 1. But yeah, MJ Collins was a complete scorer. To be honest, the one way he wasn't complete is he only hit the 1 3-pointer, where that's usually his strength. So he could have been even more dangerous in this game. So it's really nice to see kind of a returning to form, because he's now had a couple of 20-point games in his last 3 or 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
But so we're seeing him return to that scoring form where he hit a bit of a wall where teams were scouting him, figuring him out, and now he's starting to figure that out and still get back to these 20-point games like he was doing every other night in the non-conference.
Yeah, in non-conference, I mean, he's scoring at a clip that he looks like he's the clear front runner for the conference player of the year. Yeah. And then he kind of regresses to the mean, kind of the player that he was kind of known to be at his other stops in his college career. But he's starting to pick that back up again. And this is what you want. As you're coming into mid-February and the closeout of the regular season and the regular conference slate, you want your stars to be playing with confidence and making great plays and making great shots. And Saturday, and really right now, just generally speaking, that's where Utah State is at. There's a lot of guys on this team playing with confidence and doing a lot of different things to help their team. I mean, some of those dimes from Elijah Perryman, oh my gosh, those were just amazing passes. And that was a dude playing with a ton of confidence. We've seen Adlin Elamine kind of like start to soar and play really well as a freshman, as he kind of struggled at first, then he started to gain confidence. Perryman is really having that moment right now for Utah State.
Yeah, because, Perryman started out the season, I think his first 13 or so games, he was averaging like 6 points, 4 rebounds, or 4 assists per game. Really solid numbers for a backup freshman, true freshman point guard. Mm-hmm. Shooting like, 45, 46% from the field. And, the last game in that 13-game stretch, that was him going for 13 and 10 against San Jose. Like the first, freshman double-double with assists, I think, ever at Utah State. Maybe the only one, or at least the first one since at least the last 20 or so years. But then over the next 10 games after that, he went down to averaging 3 points and 2 assists. He was shooting 2 of 12 from 3. He was struggling to have the kind of impact that he was having in the non-conference. Kind of similar to what Mason had last year, though a lot more extreme and kind of packed into a smaller, role in a sense, where Mason was a starter and first-team All-Mountain West last year. But now you look at the last 2 games. 16 points, 7 assists. 10 points, 9 assists. He gets you the Mountain West Freshman of the Week. That's the kind of impact that you're wanting to see from Elijah.
And the 4 steals.
Yeah, and the 4 steals in this game. And he's doing it against defenses that are higher pressure. They're high intensity, the kind that are, nightmares for young point guards who aren't necessarily always great at protecting the ball. Like Drake had 4 turnovers against this Memphis defense. Had his pocket picked right in front of him. Like the man in front of him just took the ball from him. Happened to Elijah too, actually, once. But it kept happening to Drake Allen. He kept turning it over. Where Elijah, he had 1 turnover to 9 assists. And some of those passes were bold ones where a less capable point guard would turn it over or not even see the window, much less have a chance to commit a turnover. So Elijah Perryman, we'll see if this continues where he had the really great non-conference and start to conference play, a slump, as he kind of hit that freshman wall. Is he starting to rebound? Is he truly, at this point, he's a 25-game veteran of, he's just about reaching the kind of experience that a sophomore will have.
Well, and Coach Calhoun, I mean, that's basically some of the things that he has said. It's like these Elamine and Perryman, we can't call them freshmen anymore. Like as much as they play, as much as they're in the rotation, they have as enough experience as some sophomores do.
Yeah.
And that's how they're playing. They're playing like they're not savvy veterans, but they're playing like guys who aren't afraid of the moment of being at this level.
Yeah.
But those are games that can come and go. Freshmen can still be a little bit volatile there. Can they continue to bring that same level of intensity game in and game out? Because Elamine has been awesome, but last night or Saturday night he only had 5 points and 3 boards. So not to say that he wasn't an impactful player, but that he regressed. Not going to say he regressed, but he was a little bit off.
Yeah,
but it was okay because other guys were up. But if multiple guys are off, then you start to focus a little bit more on why was the freshman having a hard night.
Yeah, it just wasn't his night. And that's the kind of thing that you're seeing from Adlin and Elijah. They have these pretty drastic highs and lows. And it can go on for game after game. Like Mason had an off night a couple games ago where he had 8 points. But he bounced back and has had great games in basically every the drop off for a guy like Mason or MJ is typically just one game and you're back up because you just had an off night. Elijah and Adlin, they're going to be prone to 1 or 2 nights or a couple of weeks. That's the kind of thing that you see from freshmen is this, they're really riding a roller coaster where if it's Mason, it's a blip on the radar where you're having an off game. And for freshmen, sometimes the great games are a bit of a blip on the radar.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that they're really figuring out. And at this point, in the regular season, they know what they're doing now. The next test, though, will be, Mountain West tournament for the first time, because that's a whole different stage.
Can you do that on the road in a hostile environment?
Yeah, which, at this point, they've done that now, so they know, playing on the road. Adlin had a double-double in the pit. Mm-hmm. So those are the things they're figuring out, but, when we get to the Mountain West tournament, we'll figure out, do they know how to do that? Do they know how to do the NCAA tournament? That's kind of the next steps. But for now, Elijah and Adlin know what they're doing in the regular season. And they're just picking up more and more experience and trying to become more and more consistent. So that's the step that they're currently working on now.
All right, we got to take a time out here on the Full Court Press. Love to hear from you. We got texts rolling in. We'll get to those. Love to get your reactions to Saturday's game. Utah State beat Memphis 99-75. Some controversy following this game. You saw it in the handshake line, and I don't know if you heard it after the game. Calhoun addressed it, but we got audio from both Jerrod Calhoun and Penny Hardaway about what happened in the last minute and a half in that showdown between the Aggies and the Tigers. We'll hear from both coaches and get your texts as well. 435-339-0321.
Now here's a concept. You earmark a third of your profits to go back into the community to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Nate Lamson, and I'd like to share with you what I know about the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service on your copier, printer, or office solution while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Visit deximaging.com. We think globally, but act locally.
Hi friends, this is Lydia at The Sportsman on Main Street. At The Sportsman, we try really hard to find unique products. For women, this is our first season carrying Free People Movement, and you will love it. We also have great fresh looks from Viore, Pendleton, Cool, and Birkenstock. For the men, you will love our new shirts, jackets, sweaters, and pants from Cool, Fjallraven, Viore, and Pendleton. From colognes and perfumes to skis, we've got you covered.
Welcome, friend, nice to see you again at The Sportsman.
In downtown Logan.
For more than a century, couples have shopped at S.C. Needham Jewelers. Known for a large selection of beautiful diamonds, we now have both natural and lab-grown diamonds. You are sure to find a diamond engagement ring that will fit your budget. The possibilities today are endless as you select the perfect ring. Show her you'll cherish her forever with a diamond, either natural or lab-grown, from the store where Utah gets engaged. S.C. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Hi, this is Emily with Serenoni. Life is made of moments, big ones, small ones, and the meaningful moments in between. At Serenoni, we make incredibly soft blankets that bring comfort, warmth, and connection into everyday life. From welcoming new babies to cozy nights at home, to thoughtful gifts for the people you love. And when you want to make it extra special, we offer personalized embroidery too. Shop online at Serenoni.com or stop by our showroom on 10th West next to iFit. Wrap them in love, wrap them in Serenoni.
Hi, I'm Justin, owner of Master Auto Tech on Wall Avenue in Ogden. Have you noticed your vehicle's exhaust being loud and rattly? At Master Auto Tech, we diagnose and repair exhaust issues to help restore performance and protect your vehicle. With 25 locations across Utah, including Logan, Brigham City, and Ogden, there's always a Master Auto Tech nearby. Your trusted exhaust experts since 1963.
Your trusted, helpful experts, Master Auto Tech.
Talking the sports you care about. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Cache Valley's largest and most complete power sports service shop is now open at Young Power Sports Logan. They service all brands, all makes, all sizes, motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, and more. No guesswork, no shortcuts, just trained technicians who fix it right the first time. Get back out on the road, the trail, or the track fast. To schedule your service now at 755-7111. That's 755-7111. Young Power Sports sponsors our text line, and a lot of activity there. Starting off on Saturday night after the game had concluded. 1279 sent this in. Back in Stu's time, the fans threw a ton of toilet paper onto the court after the first basket and got a technical. Then Stu grabbed the PA microphone and yelled, "Stop throwing stuff onto the court." This must have been a reference to something going on in the Aggie call. It's kind of out of the blue. But yes, I do recall.
Yeah, I know the fans were getting pretty rowdy in the game. They were especially going after Sincere Parker, I believe it was.
Yeah, but there were some times, not just during Stu Morrill era, but other coaches too, where fans would throw things. Yeah, that wasn't even the biggest
shenanigans that the fans got into in the spectrum.
8968 texting in this afternoon. Actually, it was text earlier in the day. I just read that Jerrod Calhoun is the first one listed for the Kansas State job. I can only hope not. I hope Calhoun realizes that he has what he has going up here right now and how tight he is with the community, and how we can build Utah State into a national power and have a good lifestyle as well. And then I also should remember that when a team like Utah State has a good year, everybody on the team may be gone. Also, let's remember that the coaches that left the Aggies haven't exactly set the world on fire.
Yeah, I'll say this. I've just put it out of my mind for now about whether or not Jerrod Calhoun leaves. I know for one, he is right now, he's acting like he's staying here. He's planning for the future, trying to sign Aggies to NIL deals to try and keep them here or at least get a buyout. He's planning next year's schedule right now. He's planning what transfers that he's trying to sign in the offseason. So at the very least, he's finishing out this season as absolute best he can. If he ultimately chooses in late March, early April that he wants to leave, that's his prerogative. As far as coaches who have left, I don't know if this is advice to Jerrod Calhoun, but I'll just say this: look at, be careful which jobs you take, because you look at what Craig Smith did, went to Utah, a program that promised bigger numbers, but relative to what he had to go up against, did not have the support that he needed, did not have what he needed to have success at Utah. The fan base didn't support him.
Didn't have fan support, student support wasn't there.
Yeah, just absolutely nothing. Sure, you go up to the Big 12, but in the Big 12, you got to face teams that are really dang good. And so Craig Smith was miserable every single second he was with the Utes, and now he's out of coaching right now. Like that.
Danny Sprinkle's been struggling at Washington. Yeah, Danny Sprinkle's hasn't been roses there.
Yeah, Danny Sprinkle's not going to be much longer than Craig Smith was, because neither really coached bad teams. Technically, the teams that they had would have probably competed in the Mountain West for titles. They were top 100 Ken Pom teams typically, or around there. Danny Sprinkle's Washington team would probably be competing in the Mountain West for a title this year. But relative to what they have to face and the resources they get, they cannot compete in their conferences. So Danny Sprinkle's probably not much longer for Washington. But you look at Ryan Odom. Where did Ryan Odom go? Sure, he took a lateral move to VCU, but VCU is very equivalent to Utah State in that there's a lot of great support. They were in a conference where, relative to the, what he was going up against and the resources he had everything he needed to succeed. So he was able to do that. And then he went to Virginia, another fantastic job. He didn't just jump at the first power conference job that, gave him a nice smile. He went for, because Virginia is, it's one of the best jobs in the ACC.
Yeah, they're ranked 14th this week with the latest poll.
And so, they have to go up against the Dukes and North Carolinas of the world. But Virginia, they've won a national title in the last decade or so.
Right. Their resources and understanding of fan support, community support, student support, that was already laid out and ready for Ryan Odom. Well, these other places have been just trying to find somebody who can spark something, while functionally, the way that they've got their basketball program and their culture, it's not there.
Yeah, and so if you're Jerrod Calhoun and you're, his name is all over social media of fans saying, "Oh, we want this coach because we want him to come coach our team because he's doing good at Utah State." And you think, all right, is Jerrod Calhoun going to come in and magically save what you have? when your program doesn't have the resources to compete. They're not actually willing to invest. You don't just hire a head coach and then go bippity bobbity boo, you're in the NCAA tournament again. You've got to actually be willing to put forth the effort, have the support from the fans. Because like Utah State doesn't have necessarily spectacular financial resources, but the reputation that the program has attracts a lot of fantastic players at the mid-major level, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Attracts good coaches, and there's been solid enough financial support for them to, because they're at least in the top half of the Mountain West in terms of financials. So they're, at least in basketball, so they're able to put together a really good team. So just go plop Jerrod Calhoun at a bottom team in the Big 12 and is like, as good as Jerrod Calhoun can be. Like, Jerrod Calhoun's a good coach. So was Danny Sprinkle. So was Craig Smith. Like, I know people have tried to retroactively say that some of these guys weren't like good recruiters or whatnot. It's like, no, they were all fantastic recruiters, coaches.
They assembled teams that were competitive and won games.
Yeah. So like they brought people together. There's no accident that they were able to do that at Utah State, but Utah State played a factor. So go to Cincinnati and, yeah, sure, in Conference USA and the American they could dominate, but in the Big 12, they're a small fish in a big pond. K-State, right now, they're basically a small fish in a big pond. Like, can you succeed there? I mean, if you get lucky.
Yeah, and what are you walking into with, what's your leash going to be like?
Yeah.
Are they going to give you a long leash, or is it going to be a short one where if you're not performing, they'll just pull what just happened at Kansas State? You make some comments about your team, you voice some frustration about your team, and you get yanked. Coach Calhoun has said some things about his team from time to time. If he said something like that at Kansas State, if he's their next head coach, would he get yanked too?
Yeah, now you're in a 3 or 4 year long, legal battle trying to get your buyout money.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I would say to Jerrod Calhoun. If he's listened to today's show.
The grass isn't always greener.
Yeah, just
the dollars might be.
Make sure you're going to a place where the grass can be greener, because it can. Like, if the right school comes calling, yeah, you should go. Like when BYU came calling for Rob Nielsen, yeah, you go there, because the grass actually can be greener over there. Successful volleyball program, you go there because, like, that's a place you can go succeed.
Well, and there's connections there too.
Yeah, obviously there's connections, but even if there weren't those connections, that's a job that you look to go to. Ryan Odom going to VCU, that was a place. Sure, it was a lateral move, but then Virginia, that was a move you go to. Like, so many of these coaches are just chomping at the bit to take the first power conference job they can get. I was like, no, that's a potentially career-ending move. Craig Smith's coaching career might be done. Danny Sprinkle might be done with coaching after they can probably land at some other mid-major program, but like,
put yourself in a position where you can be choosy about where you want to go. Your next step.
You can get the first. You can go to Kansas State and get fired in 4 years, or you can stick around at Utah State for 5 or 8 years, and then
be a legend.
Yeah. Well, and then you look at, the big Power 5 jobs that are opening up. Like, when they open up, you can actually be a candidate for them. Like, that's the coaches really ought to be smarter. Like, sometimes coaches are as stupid as players when it comes to, moving to different schools, because they're like, oh, money and all this stuff. And, oh, of course I'm going to succeed there. And it's like, no, go somewhere. Like, they tell the players, about being smart about where they go, and then they don't listen to their own advice.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like you got to actually be smart about where you're going and understand that you've got time, you got patience, you've got good things going here, and there will be even better opportunities for you down the line.
Let's get back to the Young Power Sports of Logan text line 3714. Didn't Memphis present the type of team that has the size you see more often in the NCAA tournament field? Except their bigs weren't as skilled as you'd like.
Yeah, and that was probably the biggest difference that you'll see. Mind you, the NCAA tournament teams, they don't often have 3 7-footers. They've usually got like 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
And typically one that's pretty solid. Like last year, UCLA had the Mara kid, who I think ended up transferring actually, but he was like 7'3". Aggies didn't have any sort of response for him. But the skill definitely, because got the impression after a while that Utah State, anytime they drove, just jump in there and draw contact, because those guys are some of the most undisciplined rim defenders that I've seen for 7-footers. Mind you, it showed up in the numbers where they're one of the most foul happy teams. I think 340th in opponents like free throw rate. So that showed up in that despite having some decent, really solid block percentage numbers, they fouled a ton. So once Utah State really got Memphis backpedaling, they were really able to make things happen against them. But in terms of like Memphis being this type of team that the Aggies have struggled with, like it's the type of team the Aggies struggled with when they had some of their best teams in program history. The Miashketa, Sam Merrill teams, they lost to teams like this. They have a little bit more skill, but they lost to teams that were bigger, longer. They weren't ready for it. Finally, the Danny Sprinkle team managed to break through. Mind you, it wasn't as long and dominant of a team, but the Aggies were able to break through there. But then last year against UCLA, that was a good team. They just weren't ready for the length that UCLA ultimately presented. And this year's Utah State team has also struggled against that same kind of length. Like they were bothered by it against UNLV. They were bothered by it against Grand Canyon when they presented it. And they were bothered by it for about 15 minutes against Memphis. And then they finally figured it out. And that's a potentially big step forward because they've got a road game at UNLV. They got a home game against Grand Canyon, the same type of team, the same type of length and structure that they've struggled against. They've got to avoid losses there because that's a quad 2 road game and a quad 3 home game, I think. I think it's quad 2 home game against Grand Canyon. But like those are teams that you've got to be able to beat to make sure you get your best possible seeding. Not just make the NCAA tournament, but get your best possible seeding and then winning a game in the NCAA tournament because that's the type of team that you're going to have to beat because it's going to be like a 5th or 6th place team from the SEC or the Big 12. But they're going to have that length to be able to really bother the Aggies.
Yeah, and understanding how to attack that, how to work around it is really huge for Utah State. And so there's still more tests on that. Like you said, Grand Canyon, UNLV, Nevada doesn't quite have that length, but they do have some size that bothered Utah State a little bit last time they were here. So there are still some teams that will test Utah State in that, and we'll see how Utah State continues to work through that and show that they can get through that kind of a team before they go on to the NCAA tournament. I got to take another quick timeout here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, Penny Hardaway didn't like how things ended. And I get it. I wouldn't like getting blown out on the road by 24. But how Utah State closed out the final minute and a half, he didn't like that. And you could see it in the handshake line, and then he talked about it in his post-game radio show. Jerrod Calhoun talked about it as well. We'll hear from both coaches coming up on the other side of this timeout here on the Full Court Press.
Which cookie is best? Oh, add cream to your soda or not? Well, here's something we can all agree on. We care about Utah, and it's in danger because Great Salt Lake is drying up, crippling our economy and ecosystem. Even worse, toxic dust containing arsenic and mercury will blow from the exposed lakebed, threatening the health and safety of local communities. This isn't a future problem, it's already happening. You still have time to make a difference. Visit growgsl.org to learn how you can help save the lake.
Who do you turn to if you want to change out your wood or pellet stove? Advanced Fireplace and Stove. They were voted the gold medalist for Best of Northern Utah for the 5th year in a row in the fireplace retrofit category. Be ready when the government's next wood and pellet replacement incentives pop up. Advanced Fireplace can help you navigate the paperwork. For more information, call Advanced Fireplace and Stove, 752-7272. Online at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Hi, this is Robbie with LSS Insurance. If you're about to turn 65, the Medicare phone calls, mailers, and emails can be unreal. Out-of-market telemarketers simply do not understand Utah, Idaho, or your individual situation. We have real answers and real solutions with local help. At LSS Insurance, we are your health insurance specialists. Call us 752-9493. Having local help makes all the difference, and there's no cost to you. Call 752-9493 or visit lssins.com.
You're on your way to work when that little light pops on. The one that says, hey, you need service. But who has time to sit in a waiting room? West Motor Ford will pick up your vehicle from home or work, service it, and bring it right back. Pickup and delivery are completely free within a 35-mile radius. That's anywhere from Malad to Montpelier, Hiram to Tremonton. Plus, get $25 off any repair over $250. Schedule your free pickup and delivery at westmotorford.com or call 208-852-3853.
It doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. 435-339-0321. That's the text line if you want to chime in. Utah State with a big victory over Memphis on Saturday night. Utah State outscored Memphis 13-2 in the final minute and a half. Penny Hardaway took issue with how Utah State closed out the game. These are his comments just after the game concluded. He hopped on with the Memphis radio play-by-play announcer to share his thoughts about Utah State not really winning with class.
Coach, your team fought hard. That's a really good ball club out there.
Yeah, we had it where we needed it. The last 3 minutes of the first half, man. I just don't understand. You just got to keep fighting, bro.
Really, the 17-4 run at the end of the first half. This is a 13-2 run at the last minute and a half here. Really, that's what makes it such a bad part.
You can't keep scoring the ball.
I know.
We came out here to play this game. You got to have more class than that, dog.
I agree with that. MJ Collins did that last dunk.
It ain't even just that last one. It was just the rest of them. You just got to have some type of class, though.
I didn't like how Utah State kept pouring it on, but Coach Calhoun defended what his team was doing and how they closed out the game.
Unfortunately, the way the rules are written with the analytics, the last two baskets we would not have scored if this was normal circumstance, but the deck is stacked totally against mid-majors now, right? You got teams that have 10 and, $20 million rosters. We don't have that. We don't have that. We don't have the ability to play a bunch of quad 1 and quad 2 games. We can't get them. So we're measured. We almost got to be perfect. Let's call it like it is. The Power Fours can lose 12, 13 games. We can lose 5, right? So every possession is measured, and we got to score the ball there. Unfortunately, that we play by the rules. Those are the rules that Ken Palm and Bartorvik and the NCAA Selection Committee wants us to play by. I would never have done that to Coach Hardaway, but their assistant's a very good friend of mine, Mike Davis. I coached against him for years. He was at Indiana, national runner-up coach. Got a ton of respect for Mike. He said, Jerrod, I would run it up too. You've got to do what you got to do. You're scraping and clawing. And in 3 weeks, when we go to Selection Sunday, we're not going to look back on possessions and say we could have won some of those. So everything's on the line. We've got 3 weeks, 6 games. Before this conference tournament, and we're right there. We got to be really good here down the stretch.
Okay, so who's right? Who's wrong? Penny Hardaway right for calling out Jerrod Calhoun and the Aggies for running up the score and doing windmill dunks when the game's already decided and in hand? Or is Coach Calhoun right? Like, I'm sorry, but this is the new reality of college basketball. We have to continue to score points to look better on our metrics, to show that we had a better win margin of victory. We exceeded what was expected of this game, and that's how we have to play the game now.
Yeah, I mean, the people who are like pointing out and almost taking umbrage with the 13 points in the last minute and a half, and like how much does that matter? It's like, well, the difference between a 13-point win and a 24-point win, that's massive.
It is.
That's like, for Utah State, when you're in the top 30, top 25, moving up becomes really hard. Like this 24-point win, if like the Aggies were like in the 90s in Ken Palm, this is the kind of win that would jump them into the high 80s or the low 80s, like 81, 82. But, being at 24 or 25 where they were, it bumped them up to 24. Again, in a really competitive, area. There are places like ESPN that finally bumped the Aggies into the top 30. So, it's the kind of, that extra 11 points. That was a big deal. Now, if you're looking at the last 2 possessions, you can make a little bit more of an argument. Like, is the 2 buckets really going to make a difference? Is a 24-point win more than a 20-point win? Who knows? But this isn't the first time Utah State's tried to sneak out an extra bucket. Kobe King took a 3-pointer at the end of the Fresno game to try and make that a 16-point win instead of a 13-point win. If they had hit that, it would have been pretty much right on the money of what they were supposed to win that game by. Instead, they slightly underperformed.
Now, I'm trying to remember. There was a game earlier in this season where Calhoun kind of called off the players, and then later he kind of lamented that he did that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember it was at San Jose. Was it before that? Was it the Montana State game in overtime? I can't remember.
It might have been Montana State. I don't know. It was. I do remember that, and I forget which game it was as well, but I do remember that was something that they mentioned, like, is that if you take like a bucket per game at the end of a game, or like every other game, like you add up maybe 20 or 30 points, net points over the course of a season. Like if you did that every single game, whether it be you're trailing or ahead, like that's something that can add up. And is it really going to make that much of a difference? Probably not. But Jerrod Calhoun isn't going to take that chance. And so to some degree, you can say both are right, because it is essentially kind of being classless. Not really kind of, like that is one of the unwritten rules. You don't throw down a windmill dunk when you have the ball 3 seconds left and you're up by 22.
You're already up by north of 20 points.
But the difference is why they're doing it. It's, the classless, dirty player who just wants to show up and, talk smack to the opponents and one-up them and say, yeah, I'm better than you. I'm going to throw down a windmill dunk, and that means you suck and all that. MJ Collins isn't doing that to be a dirty player. He isn't doing it to be classless for just the sake of being classless. He's doing it with a very specific purpose behind it and is being told by his coach to do it. So, and it's not some nefarious, again, running up the score just because I hate you type of thing. It is a calculated move. Is it actually meaningful? You can debate that. You can say that Jerrod Calhoun is wrong for doing it because it's not actually going to make a difference. But you can't fault his motive.
Yeah. Maybe a layup, maybe juice a little bit more time off before you do that.
Yeah.
But the windmill dunk was fun for the fans, and he's pointing off Great Osibor and Darius Brown in the crowd. But yeah, maybe not quite to the way that they did it, but I totally understand why he's telling his guys, we got to score. We got to score. A couple texts coming in on this, 8968, saying it's too bad that style points actually matter. On the other hand, Memphis didn't quit either.
Yeah, they kept going. Like, this happens every time you're playing a team. Like, you're expected to let up while the other team gets to keep their starters, and like you're supposed to put your bench players in with like 5 minutes left when you're up by 20. And then the other guys are going to keep their starters in, and they could whittle your lead all the way down to like 6 points after being up by 20.
Yeah, and this has happened, not necessarily so much to Utah State, but it's happened to multiple teams.
Yeah.
I think it was Jeff Grammer who went on social media today and illustrated several points that happened with New Mexico and a few other teams where they let off and they had this big lead and it got whittled down, and then the victory doesn't quite look as strong as it did earlier.
Yeah, it doesn't look good on the metrics. Like, the team are happy with it. They know they performed and whatever, it's just garbage time. But the net, that is the first, flawed as it is, and I wish people wouldn't use it as this end-all be-all ranking, because actually this is one of the reasons why it's bad.
Yeah.
In some senses, but it's the first ranking you'll see. Here's Utah State on the resume. Here's their net. You know which ranking loves style points the most? The one that will most value those 2 extra buckets? It's the net.
Yeah.
The net will love it. There are some that actually factor out garbage time, like Haslametrics would have said the game was already final. I don't care what happens after, he has this analytically final, like when a lead is safe, and everything that happens after that point doesn't get factored into the ranking. You could have your, margin go all the way down to 1, but it doesn't care because it knows you basically already won it with 5 minutes to go. It doesn't factor into that ranking, so it's kind of smart in that sense.
Yeah, and then it gives you a chance for your bench guys to get some run to close out a game.
But where the net loves style points, and it is kind of the number one used or at least referenced ranking, that is the thing that you've got to be pleasing. And KenPom too. I don't think KenPom has a garbage time filter the way it has a metrics, and I think Evan Mia also does. So in these widely used, where net and KenPom are the two most, like net's 1 and KenPom's 2, like those are the 2 most used rankings. and those are the ones they're trying to please. So yeah, you've got to go for the style points.
A couple more texts before we hit a quick timeout. 5338, kind of voicing what I said earlier. Workable compromise would have been for Collins to deliver a soft layup rather than the roundhouse dunk.
Yeah.
And then 6391, I think it was Weber State that Calhoun called off the dunk. That could be.
Probably, because that was a game they were supposed to win by like 20, and they only won by 10.
They only won by 10. So that I think you're right. I think that does make a lot more sense.
And they fell in the rankings,
Yeah, they declined. Even though they won, they fell back in the net.
Yeah.
Because they didn't meet the expectations that were put on them before the game with their margin of victory. Another quick timeout here on the Full Court Press. Still time for you to chime in on the Young Power Sports with Logan text line 435-339-0321.
Retirement. Are you ready? Adams Wealth Advisors specializes in preparing you for a secure retirement. There's no reason to feel frustrated. The team at Adams Wealth will create a personalized plan that includes timing of retirement, reliable income sources, Social Security, estate planning, and more. Adams Wealth Advisors has a team of CPA, certified financial planners, Social Security experts to help you plan and retire with confidence. Call today, 752-1702, or visit adamswealthadvisors.com. That's adamswealthadvisors.com. Your dream retirement starts here.
Hey, did you drop the ball on Valentine's Day? If so, I can help you make up for it. This is Jerrod from Jerrod's Fine Jewelry. No matter where you're at in your relationship, we have something she'll love. Stop in and we'll help you pick her out a thoughtful yet inexpensive necklace, pair of earrings, bracelet, watch, or even if you're ready for the next step, with our selection of over 3,000 designs, we'll find her the perfect engagement ring. Even after Valentine's Day, it's all about the romance. Make it special, make it Jerrod's.
If you live in Box Elder County, help for ear, nose, and throat issues just got a whole lot closer. Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat is now open in their new Brigham City location. With over 75 years of combined provider experience, Dr. Jackson Deere is ready to care for allergies, asthma, sinus problems, hearing loss, and more. Finally, Cache Valley ENT in the Brigham City community at 990 South Medical Drive next to the Brigham City Hospital. Call 753-7880 to schedule or visit CacheValleyENT.com. Cache Valley ENT. Trusted care now in Brigham City.
Over the past few years, strong and crazy weather patterns have battered various parts of the country. Northern Utah and southern Idaho are not immune from its share of wild weather. Be prepared for power outages with a Generac backup generator from Golden Spike Electric. They are your local source for Generac sales and service. Generac keeps you in control when bad weather strikes. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gsegenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
Join the show by calling 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Air fresheners, snow scrapers, shop towels, sea foam, and more. It's all on sale at your locally owned Napa store from Preston to Providence. And there are storms on the way this week, so you might want to stop in and pick up some bags of Blue Heat Ice Melt for only $10 at Napa Auto Parts. So, interesting weekend, Friday and into Saturday for the 4A girls and boys basketball teams in the UHSAA playoffs taking place, and we were able to have a number of those games on Cache Valley Daily and our family radio stations. And started off on Friday, it was the Skyview boys taking care of Snow Canyon 66-33, sending a very strong message that they did not deserve that number 8 seed. This was a much better team than these rankings seem to project for Skyview, trying to send a message that they should be considered one of the top teams in 4A this year. Of course, they got a chance to prove that on Wednesday when they take on number 1 Provo. That's it's going to be a tough ask. That'll be Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Is when that broadcast should start here on The Fan. And then on Saturday in the second round of the 4A girls basketball playoffs, we had a number of games in action. 4 different local teams were in action. Number 2 Green Canyon beat up Tooele 51-31. It was number 6 Mountain Crest beating 22 ranked Park City 73-27. Skyview was on the road at Pineview, had a good showing, but unfortunately just not quite enough. And they fall to the number 3 team, 52-44. And number 7 Ridgeline beating number 10 Mountain View 43-27. So that means on Wednesday afternoon, it's a doubleheader. And one of them, it's a Region 11 rematch. as number 2 Green Canyon will take on number 7 Ridgeline. Once again, that'll be at about 5:50 Wednesday afternoon. And before that, the game preceding it will be number 6 Mountain Crest taking on number 3 Pineview, tipping off just after 4 o'clock. And we are working on having crews there at Weber State to bring you full play-by-play coverage here on our family of radio stations. Unfortunately, we aren't able to video stream those games, but we will have full play-by-play here on the radio.
Yeah, and especially those girls teams. I mean, I got a chance to call a game for Skyview. Is a really solid team they have there. Still a lot of up-and-comers, though. But then that Mountain Crest team, J.C. Carroll has done a fantastic job ramping up and getting all these girls ready to play high-level high school basketball. And so really interested to see how, where they're the underdog in that game, but I think they'll have a real shot. I mean, it's a 3 versus 6. It's not that big of a discrepancy.
Yeah, true.
And so and Mountain Crest played in a really tough region. And of course, you also got Green Canyon Ridgeline. There have been a lot of fantastic games, where those two programs have been 2 of the best in high school girls basketball. Ridgeline's always kind of been for the most part, has been the upper team, but she was kind of on the other foot where Green Canyon's been the dominant one this season, and they're the ones going in as a favorite against Ridgeline.
Yeah, and Ridgeline had one of their top players out for a stretch of the season. She's now back. So interesting to see what that game will look like on Wednesday afternoon down at Weber State University. So best of luck to all the teams heading south to Ogden for those games. Coming up next hour, we still have a lot more to get into. Some scheduling news for Utah State football. The financial details are more available for Sacramento State. The MAC just fleeced them.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. This year's March Madness is quietly turning into one of the more mysterious tournaments we've seen in some time. The talent is obvious. Players like BYU's A.J. Debansa, Duke's Cameron Boozer, and Kansas' Darren Patterson give the field star power. At the same time, the usual heavyweights are right where we expect them. Arizona, Michigan, Houston, Duke, Connecticut, Michigan State. Programs built for March. Rosters designed to survive chaos. That part of the bracket feels familiar. What makes this tournament different is the crowd forming behind them. Iowa State, Nebraska, Vandy, teams not supposed to be in this conversation, now very much part of it. This tournament does not have a clear script. It feels deeper than usual, more balanced, and far less forgiving. Talent is everywhere. Confidence is spreading, and that usually means madness. This year's tournament will be deep, loaded, and if chaos delivers, it'll be unforgettable. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.